The night I found Julian Thorne bleeding in an alley. My hands remembered how to save a life before my mind remembered how afraid I was. I didn't know his name then. I only knew the sound he made when he tried to breathe like something tearing wet paper inside his chest. South Philly at 2 in the morning smells like old rain and metal, and yesterday's anger. The streetlight above us flickered, buzzing like it couldn't decide whether to stay or leave. And I remember thinking how fitting that felt. I was the same way. Half present, half gone. I'd taken a wrong turn coming off Washington Avenue. I worked nights because sleep had stopped making sense after the war, and the quiet hours were kinder to me. Less noise, fewer questions. The diner where I pulled shifts needed someone who didn't mind the overnight crowd men with red eyes, and women who held their coffee cups like life preservers. I fit right in. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from my sister asking if Leo had finished his homework. I was about to reply when I heard the thud. A body hitting brick. Then the breathing. Ragged. Wrong. I should have kept walking. That's what the part of me that learns survival whispered. Don't look. Don't engage. Get home to your son. But my boots were already turning. Muscle memory is a powerful thing. Training lives deeper than fear. He was slumped against the alley wall, one hand pressed hard to his side, blood seeping through his fingers like he was trying to hold himself together by will alone. His coat was expensive wool, tailored. His shoes were polished. This wasn't a drunk or a junkie. This was a man who didn't belong where he was dying. He looked up at me with eyes that were sharp even through pain. Calculating. Dark. He opened his mouth like he might tell me to run. Or threaten me. Or beg. Don't move, I said instead. My voice steady in a way that surprised me. I dropped to my knees, ignoring the sting as they hit broken glass. I could smell iron. Gunshot. 2. Maybe 3. 1 high, 1 low. I pressed, assessed, counted breaths. My hands shook, but they did the work anyway. Trauma doesn't erase skill. It just makes you pay for it later. Sirens wailed somewhere far off. Or maybe that was just memory. I'm a medic, I told him, because saying it made me feel like myself again. Like Isla Monroe, not the woman who woke up gasping. Not the mother who flinched at fireworks. I can help you. He studied my face as if committing it to memory. You shouldn't, he said, voice hoarse. It won't end well. I almost laughed. The war had taught me that mercy always came with a price. I paid it anyway. Before that night, my life was small. On purpose. Leo and I lived in a second-floor apartment over a laundromat that never quite dried your clothes. The walls were thin. The radiator knocked like it had opinions. But it was ours. Leo's room had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. And every night before bed, he asked me to check that they were still there, as if they might leave without warning. Still shining, I'd tell him, smoothing his hair. Just like you. He was 8. Serious in the way only children who've lost too much too early can be. His father died while I was deployed in accident. They said. I got the news in a sandstorm. The sky, the same color as grief. I came home with medals I didn't want, and a silence that filled every room. Working nights meant I could be there in the mornings. Pack lunches. Walk him to school when my sister couldn't. Watch him disappear through the school doors with his too big backpack and feel like maybe I was doing something right. The diner was a world unto itself. The grill hissed. Coffee pots clinked. Frankie, the cook, called everyone Han and pretended not to notice when my hands shook pouring cream. There was comfort in routine. Order in the chaos. I didn't talk about the war. People didn't ask. South Philly understands unspoken things. Everyone's got a corner of their life they keep boarded up. I thought I'd figured out how to live with the memories. Keep them contained. Like a locked drawer you only open when you have to. Then I took that wrong turn. I rode with him in the ambulance because he asked me to. His hand found my wrist as the EMTs loaded him up. His grip surprisingly strong. Stay, he said, not pleading. Commanding. It should have made me angry. Instead, it grounded me, focused me. At the hospital, fluorescent lights washed everything pale. He was rushed into surgery, and I sat in a plastic chair that stuck to the backs of your legs. I counted ceiling tiles, listened to the beeping behind double doors. When a nurse finally came out, she asked my name and my relation to the patient. I found him, I said. She nodded like that was enough. Hours later, a man in a dark suit approached me. He had the posture of someone who didn't ask permission to enter rooms. His eyes flicked to the bloodstains on my sleeves. You saved his life, he said. Not a question. I stabilized him, I corrected. The surgeons did the rest. He smiled thinly. Mr. Thorne will want to thank you. That was the first time I heard the name. Julian Thorne. It meant nothing to me then. Just another stranger with a debt and a story I didn't want to know. I don't need anything, I said. I need to go home. He studied me the way Julian had. Weighed me. Debts have a way of finding their owners, he replied. I left before he could say more. Julian sent flowers to the diner. White lilies. The card said simply, "Thank you for choosing mercy." No signature. Frankie whistled low. You got a secret admirer, Isla? I threw the card away. Mercy wasn't a choice I wanted attached to my name. It was a reflex. A scar. But things began to shift. A black sedan idled too long outside our building. Men who didn't eat at diners started showing up at 3 a.m., ordering coffee they didn't drink. Watching, I told myself it was coincidence, that I was imagining patterns because my mind was trained to find threats. Hypervigilance, the VA doctor called it. Like putting a name on it would make it manageable. Then Leo asked me why a man was standing across the street taking pictures of our building. That was the first night I couldn't sleep at all. Julian Thorne asked to see me a week later. He was sitting up in bed when I walked into his private room. Color returned to his face, pain held behind a practiced calm. He looked older than I'd thought. Lines at the corners of his eyes. A man who had lived long enough to regret some things. You saved me, he said. I did my job. He smiled. You did more than that. You reminded me who I was before the world made me something else. I didn't know what to say to that. I thought of Leo's stars, of the alley, of blood on brick. I don't want to be involved, I said quietly. Julian nodded. I know, but his gaze lingered, heavy with something like hope or guilt. I left with a bad feeling in my chest, the kind you get when you know a door has opened that you can't close again. And somewhere in the city, a man named Dante Salvatore was watching, deciding that mercy was a weakness he could use. The first time I met Dante Salvatore, he smiled like he already knew how the story ended. I didn't know his name then either. I just knew the air changed when he walked into the diner like a draft sneaking under a door you thought was sealed. He was younger than Julian, maybe mid-30s, with neatly trimmed dark hair and a confidence that felt sharpened. He wore his suit like armor, tailored close to the body, no wasted fabric. Men like him never wasted anything. He slid into a booth without asking, across from me as I wiped down the counter. His eyes flicked to my hands. Everyone noticed my hands eventually. You're the medic, he said, voice smooth. Isla Monroe. Hearing my full name from a stranger landed wrong. I kept my tone neutral. Coffee? He smiled wider. Black. As I poured, he watched the room. Not like a customer, like an owner checking inventory. Frankie shot me a look from the grill, eyebrows raised, and I shook my head slightly. Not now. You've been busy, Dante said. Saving lives. Raising a son. Working too many hours for a woman who deserves more. I set the mug down harder than necessary. If you're here to thank me, you're late. I'm here to understand you. That earned him a look. Understanding costs extra. He laughed softly. You see? That's what I like. You don't bend. The words sent a chill through me. Say what you want and leave. Dante leaned back, crossing his arms. Julian has a soft spot for you. That's dangerous. Then he should get rid of it, I replied. His eyes darkened, just for a moment. Or maybe you should. He stood, placed a few bills on the table too much for coffee, and paused. War teaches you how fragile order is. Don't forget that. After he left, Frankie muttered, Bad news, hon. I nodded. My heart was racing, my chest tight. I hated how familiar it felt. Like the moments before an ambush. Like waiting for something you can't see. I told Julian to call off his people. We met again. This time, in a quiet park near the river. It was daytime. Families pushing strollers. Joggers with earbuds in. Normal life happening inches away from something rotten. They're scaring my son, I said, not bothering with pleasantries. I didn't ask for protection. Julian looked tired, older than his years. He wore a coat too heavy for the weather. I didn't intend for that. Intent doesn't matter, I said. Impact does. He nodded slowly. Dante thinks fear is a language everyone understands. And you don't. Julian watched a little girl wobble past on a bike, her father jogging behind her. I think fear is easy, he said. Mercy is expensive. I let that sit between us. Then pay the price somewhere else. He met my gaze. He won't let this go. I don't want favors, I said. I want my life back. Julian exhaled, long and slow. If I could go back to that alley, he murmured, I would have told you to keep walking. So would I said honestly. But we can't. That was when I saw it in his eyes, something like resolve, mixed with regret. I'll pull them back, he promised. No one will come near you or Leo. I wanted to believe him. The night Leo was taken, I was 5 minutes late. 5 minutes is nothing in most lives. It's the time it takes for water to boil, for a song to end. In mine, it was everything. My sister had texted. asking if I could pick Leo up instead of her. Traffic was thick. I cursed at a red light, drummed my fingers on the steering wheel. When I pulled up to the school's after-hours program, the lights were still on. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and crayons. Leo? I called. A teacher looked up from the desk, confusion creasing her face. His uncle picked him up. My stomach dropped. He doesn't have an uncle. Her face went pale. I don't remember running. I remember the sound of my own breath. Too loud, too fast. I remember my phone slipping in my sweaty hand as I dialed Julian. He's gone, I said when he answered. They took my son. The silence on the other end was heavier than any scream. Dante, Julian said quietly. I slid down the wall, my legs giving out. The war came rushing back, full force. The helplessness, the rage, the fear sharpened to a point. You promised, I whispered. And I failed, he replied. I won't again. They took me that same night. I barely heard the knock before the door splintered. I fought, of course I did. Muscle and instinct and terror. It didn't matter. There were too many of them. A hand over my mouth, a sharp pain in my neck. The world tilting. When I woke, the air smelled like oil and rust. A warehouse. My wrists were tied, but not cruelly. Dante was standing in front of me, hands in his pockets. You see, he said calmly, this didn't have to be ugly. Where is my son? I demanded. Safe, he said. For now. I lunged, ropes biting into my skin. If you touch him, Dante's smile vanished. This isn't about him. Or you. It's about Julian remembering who he is. You're wrong, I said, my voice steady despite everything. This is about you. He tilted his head. Is it? I met this Gaza. You're afraid. That earned me a laugh. Of what? Of becoming irrelevant, I said. Of a world where mercy matters more than fear. His eyes hardened. You think you're special because you patched him up? I think, I said slowly, that you mistake kindness for weakness. And that's going to cost you. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned away. Bring him, he ordered someone behind me. Let's see what kind of man Julian Thorne wants to be. Alone in that warehouse, tired and aching, I closed my eyes and thought of Leo's stars, of counting breaths, of choosing mercy even when it hurt. Because sometimes, survival isn't about fighting. It's about refusing to become the thing that's trying to break you. The waiting was the worst part. They left me alone for hours, or maybe minutes. Time does strange things when fear sits heavy in your chest. The warehouse hummed with distant machinery, a low vibration that crept into my bones. Somewhere water dripped, steady and patient, like it had all the time in the world. I tested the ropes again. Tight, but not cruel. Dante wanted me alive, presentable, useful. I forced my breathing into a rhythm the army had taught me 4 counts in, 4 out. I pictured Leo's face the last time I'd kissed his forehead that morning. He'd smelled like toothpaste and pancakes. Don't be late, he'd told me, wagging a finger like he was the parent. I'd laughed. Promised. I broke that promise. Footsteps echoed. Multiple. Purposeful. Julian Thorne stepped into the open space like a man walking into his own funeral. His shoulders were squared, his face carved from stone. But I saw the tremor in his hands when his eyes found me. Isla, he said softly. I swallowed. Where's my son? Julian looked past me. Dante. Dante emerged from the shadows, clapping slowly. Ah, the king arrives. Julian didn't look at him. You've made your point. Let them go. Dante laughed. Already? We've barely started. You've crossed a line, Julian said. She was never part of the business. That's where you're wrong, Dante replied. She became part of it the moment you changed. Julian turned to me then, guilt flooding his eyes. I'm so sorry. I shook my head. Save him. That's all that matters. Dante watched us like we were a performance. You hear that? She still believes in you. Julian's jaw tightened. End this. Dante's smile thinned. You can. Right now. A gun appeared in Dante's hand, held out like an offering. Kill me. Remind everyone why they fear the name Thorne. The warehouse went silent. Even the dripping stopped. I felt something crack open in my chest. Julian, I said, my voice steady but urgent. Don't. Dante scoffed. You think mercy will save you? It didn't save her husband. It didn't save your men. This world runs on blood. Julian's hand hovered over the gun. I could see the weight of every life he'd taken pressing down on him. The easy choice was violence. The familiar one. You told me mercy was expensive, I said. This is the cost. He looked at me. Really looked. Not like a debt. Not like a symbol. Like a mirror. What happens if I don't? He asked quietly. Then you're free, I said. And so are we. Dante laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You'll tear everything down for her? Julian lowered the gun. For myself. The sound of it hitting the concrete echoed like a verdict. Dante's face twisted. You're weak. No, Julian said. I'm done. Chaos erupted anyway because it always does. A shout. A scuffle. Someone fired into the ceiling. I screamed as Julian surged forward, tackling Dante. Not to kill, but to disarm. The world narrowed to motion and sound and fear. Then it was over. Dante lay on the ground. Alive. Breathing hard. Eyes burning with hatred. Julian stood over him. Chest heaving. Leave, Julian told his men. All of you. They hesitated. Then, one by one, they did. Julian cut my ropes himself. Hands gentle, apologetic. Leo, he said. He's in the office. He hasn't been hurt. I didn't walk. Iran. Leo was sitting on a folding chair, knees tucked to his chest, clutching his backpack. When he saw me, he broke. The sound he made raw and relieved will live in my bones forever. I'm here, I whispered, crushing him to me. I'm here. He buried his face in my shoulder. I knew you'd come. Julian watched from the doorway, something like peace flickering across his face. We left Philadelphia 2 weeks later. Julian kept his word. He dismantled what he could, turned over what he couldn't carry anymore. He gave us money I didn't want and documents I didn't ask questions about. A clean break. On the morning we drove away, Julian stood on the sidewalk, hands in his coat pockets. He looked smaller somehow, lighter. You saved me twice, he said. I shook my head. You saved yourself. He smiled. Take care of him. I will. As we pulled onto the highway, Leo leaned his head against the window. Mom? Yes, baby. Are we safe now? I looked ahead, the road stretching open and uncertain. We're free, I said. That's better. Sometimes I think about that alley, about how one wrong turn changed everything. Trauma doesn't disappear. It softens, reshapes, learns to live alongside you. Mercy is a choice you make again and again, even when it costs you. Especially then. We settled in a town that didn't ask questions. It sat just off a long stretch of highway, the kind of place where people waved because it was habit, not curiosity. Our house was small white siding, a porch that creaked when you stepped too close to the edge. The first night there, I slept on the floor of Leo's room because he asked me to. He wanted to make sure I didn't disappear again. I didn't mind. The floor smelled like fresh paint and sawdust. It smelled like beginnings. Leo went quiet for a while. Not withdrawn, just careful. He started lining his toys up before bed, checking the locks twice, asking me what I'd do if someone knocked after dark. I answered honestly, but gently. I'd look first. I'd make sure we were safe. Some nights, I sat in the bathroom with the fan on, breathing through memories that refused to stay buried. The warehouse came back in pieces, the echo, the gunshot, Dante's smile collapsing into rage. Healing, I learned, wasn't linear. It came in waves. You either learn how to float, or you let it pull you under. I chose to float. I took a job at a small urgent care clinic. Day shifts. The smell of antiseptic instead of grease and coffee. My hands still shook sometimes, but they remembered what to do. Helping people in small, contained ways felt manageable. Human. The first time a car backfired in the parking lot, I froze. My chest locked up, my vision narrowing. Then I felt a small hand slip into mine. It's okay, Mom, Leo said quietly. It's just noise. I knelt down and pressed my forehead to his. Thank you, I whispered. Children save us in ways they'll never understand. Julian wrote once, a letter, not a call. No return address. He said he'd stepped away from everything that had defined him. That dismantling an empire was harder than building one, but lighter on the soul. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't ask for contact. He just said he hoped Leo liked his new school, and that Mercy had taught him how to sleep again. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. Some chapters don't need rereading. They just need acknowledgement. Dante's name surfaced in the news months later. Arrested. Alive. Furious, I imagined. The world didn't forget him the way it had forgotten others. Consequences are strange like that. Uneven. Imperfect. But they arrive eventually. Leo started laughing again. The full-bodied kind that surprised even him. He made friends. Learned the neighbor's dog's name. Asked me once if stars followed people when they moved. I think they wait, I told him. Until you're ready. One evening, after Leo was asleep, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea gone cold. The cicadas sang, loud and unapologetic. I thought about the woman I was before the war, before loss, before an alley changed my life. I wasn't her anymore, but I wasn't broken either. Strength, I realized. wasn't about how much pain you could endure. It was about how much softness you allowed to remain. I went inside, checked the locks not out of fear, but care, and turned off the lights. Tomorrow would come, and for the first time in a long while, that felt like a promise, not a threat. Sometimes people ask me if I regret stopping that night in the alley. They ask it gently, like they're afraid of the answer, like they expect me to say yes, that mercy ruined my life, that choosing kindness nearly cost my child everything. And for a long time, I didn't know how to respond without my throat tightening. Because the truth is, mercy did cost me something. It cost me sleep. It cost me safety I thought I'd earned. It dragged old wounds back into the light and forced me to look at parts of myself I tried very hard to bury. It reminded me that doing the right thing doesn't come with guarantees. But it also gave me something I didn't even realize I'd lost. It gave me choice. Julian chose mercy when the world told him to choose blood. I chose courage when fear begged me to look away. And my son, my quiet, brave little boy, chose trust, even after the ground shifted beneath his feet. We don't always get to choose what happens to us. Trauma doesn't knock politely. Loss doesn't ask permission. But we do get to choose what kind of people we become when we're tested. Some nights, I still hear the city in my dreams, the sirens, the echo of boots on concrete, the sound of a man bleeding in the dark. But when I wake up, I hear something else too. I hear my son breathing in the next room. I hear cicadas singing like they aren't afraid of being heard. I hear life insisting on itself. And I remember that mercy isn't weakness. It's a refusal to let the worst parts of this world decide who you are. So I'll leave you with this. The same way Auntie May always does. If you had walked past that alley, if you had known the cost, would you have stopped anyway? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and support the channel. Because these stories only live on when they're shared.